take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Mark Hughes. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance, and you've caught us on Juxtaposition once again on the second Wednesday of the month. It's 5:25. We're live, and I'm glad you made it. This is Juxtaposition, issues affecting black folks affecting change. And tonight, what we're going to be talking about is we've got old conversations. Old conversations. That's our story tonight. So glad you tuned in. Glad you can make it. The current administration has rolled back enforcement on civil rights in the United States to a time of separate but equal, which is probably somewhere around 1890 to 1910. This is when lynchings and convict leasings were the order of the day. The work of exposing and mitigating systemic racism, that's the legacy of slavery. We should all be familiar with that by now here, at least in this space. It's now federally banned and basically designated as being illegal. These rollbacks on civil rights and the attacks on actions addressing disparate outcomes or disparate impacts are meticulously targeted at dismantling an infrastructure that was designed to move us towards a more perfect union. These rollbacks and attacks rather take us back to our historical patterns that we know that are basically just maintaining racial hierarchies. So that's where we are in this nation. These setbacks are taking us back at least 100 to 135 years in what we know to be the enforcement of the existence and the enforcement of civil rights in America. So what are we doing to ensure that civil rights do exist? How are we making sure that the United States of America is the United States of America? How do we once again realize that civil rights are rooted in the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution and are meant to protect all of us? And if they're not protecting some of us, then they're not protecting any of us. These are the ones that our ancestors gave their lives for. I'm joined by Deacon Dr. Roy V. Hill, who's here with me right now in the studio. Welcome, Deacon Dr. Roy V. Hill II. God bless you. Welcome.
Thank you, Reverend Mark Hughes.
So
Amen.
good to see you.
Ditto.
It's good to see you. So yeah, we've got some ground to cover. Before we get into it, though, I want to just direct the folks' attention just to this slide here, because really what we're talking about is we're talking about systemic racism, and we've offered a definition of systemic racism not just to the legislature, but also in the work that we do, understanding it to be the unjustly gained in political and economic power of whites, and the continuing economic and other resources, these resource inequalities along racial lines. And just noting that this is also the emotion-laden racist framing that's created by whites to maintain and also rationalize the white privilege and power. Thank you for that. And the reason why I brought that slide up, because it seems to me that that's where all of this effort is being directed. They want to deconstruct all of the progress that we've made. Some of us have forgotten, the work that we've done even like from 2020, during what we call the racial reckoning, George Floyd. From your perspective, what are you seeing and what do you think we're experiencing?
Again, I want to first respond by saying thank you, not only for this moment, but also because of what you're doing. You as a leader, you as a pastor, a minister. In terms of what's happening at the moment, people seem to be running from the truth.
Yeah.
The truth in terms of justice, the truth, if you will, in terms of the currency that we have in our pockets. In God we trust. So to trust that reality is to move beyond the negativity affecting you and affecting me, people of, quote, color. Because when you hurt one of us, you hurt all of us who are members of this one human family here on planet Earth. And so we see rollbacks. At the moment, this is Texas that's in the news because of trauma that has occurred there.
Yeah, God bless him.
And the governor himself was cutting back on the funds necessary to help and provide safety for many of children and adults who fall in situations where FEMA, if you will, dollars have been used and were allocated. But those dollars have been systematically cut back. But that's symbolic of cutbacks across our country at the moment. Education, if you will, and we can go on further with respect to cutbacks where people are denied the opportunity to develop and enhance and further the good which we know to be available in our country. But the cutback hurts you, it hurts me. You, the white person, you, the Native American person, you, the adult, you, the child. Many people are being hurt who actually voted for the current president of the United States. And as a result, we hear media saying, wait a minute, something is wrong.
So here we are again. We've got this we've got this situation where we've had just literally millions of people influenced to vote for somebody who at the end of the day ended up acting against their own best interests, is what it seems like, because I'm seeing so many policies that are coming out that are hurtful, that are just mean, that are just greedy, that are just racist. And I think that's what I'm focusing on is this policy violence that's focused on race, and it's coming at us from so many different directions. If you recall, just one example is I think out of the gate, the very first thing at the top of the agenda of this administration was to get rid of USAID.
That's true, and that's most unfortunate because, truth be told, if we look at the world population, some 8 billion, in fact, there's 8.1 billion as of the first of this month. We're looking at a world population of, quote, people of color being in the majority. That is somewhere between 70 and 85%. So if we are attacking anyone, we are attacking the whole of civilization. And we are interdependent. We import and vice versa in order for the health and welfare of our economy to go forward. So if you are what is it? Tariffs, I believe, is the word now. So
tariffs is the word.
So if you're talking about tariffs, you're hurting America, American farmers, American teachers, American families, etc., and self. Unless, of course, as Vermont U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders says, there's an oligarch, etc., or that seems to be in the water that does not care about the welfare and the overall health of everybody within our nation. I come back to looking at African Americans, and I look at Native Americans, or the indigenous people, if you will, and those who, by ill-gotten gain, that is, have taken the land from them and taking us from land and taken our contributions and either not given credit to, or just simply taken those and gone forth for a selfish reason. But without that contribution, without those contributions, which are still going on, yet denied and or not acknowledged, then we wouldn't be where we are on the good side of the coin. We would not be where we are. So to say that
there is a good side of the coin.
Oh yes, there is a good side.
We're not going to forget that.
And we continue to lift that up. And as the late poet, Dr. Maya Angelou says, we rise.
We rise, and we rise. It's coming at us from so many different directions. Policing, housing, education, employment, health services, economic development. There's so many just really horrible policies that are causing so much pain. But let's step away from that for a minute. I want to just take you to just a quick little commercial break. I've got here for you, save the date. Save the date, y'all. Save the date. You ought to be there. This is Vermont's first African Landing Day. First African Landing Day. For those of you who are not familiar with it, this is going to be the 7th year. Just save that date. That's going to be August 23rd. I found out just yesterday that we're going to be in Roosevelt Park, as well as at the Richard Kim Center. That's on August 23rd, 2025. This will be the 7th consecutive year that we've done First African Landing Day, fully proclaimed by the governor, the fourth Saturday of every August. We will be commemorating First African Landing Day. So just save that date. I want to see you there. We'll have more for you on that as time breaks. Follow us on VT Racial Justice Alliance on Twitter, on Facebook rather, as well as on Instagram. They suspended our Twitter account. Go figure. So yeah, just talking about the whole thing about this, all of the ways that they're coming at us. And when I say coming at us, what I'm talking about is this is racist policy. And the thing is there, as I said at the opening, and we'll have a couple of slides on this, is there anything that, any program, any policy, any initiative that went towards acknowledging as well as dismantling the institution of slavery or the legacy of slavery, which is to say systemic racism. And that can come across a vast, array of different areas to include, people just like to say DEI, but even the heart of it, which is the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause and the responsibility of this nation to provide civil rights based upon the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Housing Rights Act of 1965, the Voting Rights Act of 1968. I think those are switched around. The point being is they've just simply stopped enforcing those at the national level, and they've weaponized the Department of Justice, and now they're just pursuing political agendas like, oh, let's chase down gay and trans folks, and let's chase down folks who are implementing DEI. So it's tough out there, because what that means is that there's no reasonable expectation that any of the protections that we previously received in housing, in education, for example, because we know the reason why we were doing these programs, because we know that there are racial disparities rather, in, say, for example, expulsion rates, or even suspension rates, or even access to home loans and so forth. So a lot of stuff going on out there to that end, and it doesn't seem like it's easing up. Wanted to talk to you, though, about the workforce, the federal workforce. Did you see that? It seems as though there is a concerted effort from day one, again, second only to that of their intentions towards USAID, to deconstruct the federal workforce. And we just got a ruling from the bench over the last couple of days that indicated that that the justices were supportive of that they were going to uphold that the president would be able to continue that dismantleization. Your thoughts there?
I'm almost speechless to look at what media says is happening in terms of families crying and people dying, suicide and otherwise. On one hand, we talk about the institutions, the Constitution, and the Constitution being the bedrock, yet pillars are being pulled out, that support the Constitution, not only in terms of the word that speaks truth, if you will, to the degree that it's possible for humans to do that. At the same time, we see individual members of the Supreme Court being attacked. Most recently, editor-at-large for Newsweek, I think his name's Josh Hammond, wrote a very stinging commentary against Supreme Court Judge Jackson. At the same time, she's one of the most elite, qualified, and proven among the able members of the court. Yet, in his commentary, he considers her unqualified and hence an embarrassment to the United States. But that gets back to the manner in which black men and women in particular have been abused, misused, and I think it's okay to say the word rape, but rape down to the ages. You can think of looking at the third president, Jefferson, that affirms that.
My man, Thomas Jefferson.
Absolutely. So if we look at the manner in which things are happening at the moment, it reminds us of the Old Testament. There's nothing new under the sun. Yet, if there's nothing new, the question is raised as to what's being taught in these various denominations and Sunday morning. Is it really that we're talking about make America, quote, great again, or are we talking about making America, quote, white again? So the thought is, how can we help those who can see to remove the scale from their eyes so that indeed they do see, which is a challenge. On one hand, is back to education. 64% of adults are illiterate down to the 4th to 6th grade level. So if that is what we're looking at, on the other hand, we're cutting funds for education. So if we're cutting funds for education and taking over media, and that media is not speaking to truth or treating truth as if it is the enemy, where indeed are we headed?
Where are we? Where are we? Yeah, absolutely. And you alluded to it, but we at the top of the hour we said that this is this program. When I was thinking about what we were here to talk about, I just called it an old conversation. Because this is old, is the day is long. This nation has been struggling with this issue of race. This administration knows it. They know that it's the biggest wedge that they can use to divide people, because it invokes fear, the issue of race and racism. It invokes guilt. It invokes shame. It invokes grievance, and they're coming at it from every angle. Even, we saw, you put that slide back up for a minute, we saw that slide. The federal workforce, the reason why they're going at the federal workforce is the diversity in the federal workforce. We also know, thank you for that, we also know that there's, we're back to traveling bans. Oh, we want to ban Muslim. No, you don't. You don't want to ban Muslim countries. You want to ban black countries. That's what you're doing. So these are all racist policies, and what it cuts to is it cuts to the heart of what it is that they're trying to establish is a wedge that where there's a false narrative that's been created that these progressives they've gone too far, they've got too woke, they've got this CRT, they've defunded the police and this and that and the third, and even progressives are believing this now, where folks have pivoted from the conversation of race and racism to the extent that we don't even want to organize around it, even though it's the biggest wedge in our communities and in our societies today. And it's exactly the reason why that man is sitting in that office. And the thing is that if as we look at this thing, we just got to be analytical. The nation has always had this problem where they'll go so far and then all of a sudden they'll just pull back. We call it white backlash, and pivot on to something else, because they just do not have the appetite to finish what they started. So we're going to finish what we started. We're going to keep doing this work.
You mentioned two things, or you triggered two thoughts in my head. You used the word woke. I am saying with that it is important to look at the definition of what a word really stands for, what people are actually saying. If you hear the word woke, look it up in the dictionary with respect to what that word actually means, contrasted with how it is being used. Secondly, in terms of there's nothing new being propagated across international borders, for that matter. I can remember when I was 11 years old and white people in America came to kill my grandfather. They came to kill my grandfather because they wanted to show their disagreement with the 1954 Supreme Court decision relative to advancing equitable education, fair education, inclusive education. Now, the outcome of that was my grandfather, you might say, who they were trying to kill, murder, as a symbol of their resistance, was a person who was respected because of his value system and because of his work with his white and black neighbors, even though this was in the heart of visible segregation here in this country. So when the vigilantes, including the KKK and including the Black Legions, the Black Legionnaires, I would encourage folks to look that up because you don't hear about them that much, but they were the military arm of the KKK, thought the KKK was too passive, so they pulled out. And they felt the KKK wasn't murdering enough, fast enough black people. But the white people and the black people came together, met the vigilantes, a verbal powwow, and they decided, quote, to leave George alone.
It's a fusion movement.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if we look at the divisiveness that is ongoing right at this moment.
It disabled the wedge.
Yes.
They addressed it. They faced the wedge, and they realized that race was being used to separate them, the poor white people and the black people.
Yes.
Imagine that.
Yes, absolutely. So here again, if we can come together, recognizing once again that this is one planet Earth, one human family, then the differences of love and fairness, or the five.
It's an old story.
It's an old story.
It's an old story. Just the same thing with Reconstruction. When we went down through Reconstruction, they went so far, and then they lost the appetite for it in 1877 when Rutherford B. Hayes and James Tilden, and during that election, and they withdrew the troops from the South. And that's when Reconstruction fell. And it would take us from that point, which was roughly right after Plessy versus Ferguson, which is in the late 1890s.
Yes.
That took us all the way. We would have to go through hell and high water for the next 80-some years in order to, or 60-some years, to move us to Brown versus the Board of Education, as you said. And most of it, the hard part, look at this slide, is based upon a lie.
Yes.
Because one of the things that they're telling us is things are unsafe. Look at these numbers. Crime is down. This is what you see violent crimes per 100,000, and then you see per 1,000. That's why those scales, they're about a tenth of one another on your verticals. You see them dropping precipitously. And this is, in addition to FBI, we also have the Bureau of Statistics. So yeah, thank you for that. So there's so many false narratives that we're experiencing that folks are just biting off on. But what's more, I think, challenging in some cases disappointing, is that we've got a lot of folks who are mobilized. We've got 50501. We've got the folks from over at various movements. I'm not going to start calling everybody out, but when we start looking at what we're actually asking for and what we're organizing around, we see there's a disconnect because nobody wants to just come right out and say, look, we need to talk about race. We need to talk about racism. You're using it as a wedge. And we also need to have some conversations about what it actually means to this nation. you know?
Amen to that, and what it means to the future.
Right.
There is, however loud the rumble, in high school situation, we find that a number of schools, even in, quote, white Vermont, unquote, we have students who are standing up when teachers, administrators, and superintendents are almost totally quiet and saying, we're being prepared for the real world, and the real world is an inclusive world. So let's have this course. Let's stop the purge of curriculum and banning of books and see what the real truth is as we move forward. That is...
Let's see what the real truth is.
Amen.
Yeah, the real truth, the real truth. As we're heading towards wrap, I did want to lift up just this. There's this last couple of things I got first on the slide here. One is raise up justice. Is what we're calling this movement. This is a civil rights movement. It's a fusion movement. It's a multiracial, intergenerational, interfaith, multi-able, politically independent fusion movement. At the heart of it is we're building power to fight for the civil rights, to reclaim civil rights, equal protection, human rights, nonviolence, beloved community. So that's going to be going on the third Thursday. I wanted to make folks aware of that. Thank you there, control room. Yeah, the other thing too is I want to make you mindful of I believe just on the narrative surrounding it, if you want to go right back to that, just here in the last couple of seconds, go back to that slide in the control room, is look folks, listen, this administration policies, they represent a backlash against exposing and addressing systemic racism, the legacy of slavery. That's it. This is a historical pattern here. They're trying to maintain these racial hierarchies. Racism is the primary wedge, y'all. You don't have to. You can get at it if you're out hollering in front of the federal building trying to get somebody else released, and we should. But at the heart of that is racism. That's at the heart of that is racism. And look, the true justice, stability, safety for all Americans, the only way we're going to ever achieve that is by acknowledging and addressing racism, systemic racism, as the legacy of slavery. Civil rights protections are fundamental to the democratic integrity and the societal well-being of this nation. If we do not have civil rights, we do not have a democracy. We do not have a republic. Somebody said, we have a republic if we can keep it. Folks, we got to get busy. We got to double down. We need to look at what it is that's the primary wedge, and we need to circle around, and we need to come together in fusion. Thank you for coming. It has been Juxtaposition. Roy, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you,
Reverend.
Reverend.
Such a pleasure having you here with me. This is Issues Affecting Black Folks Affecting Change, Juxtaposition. We'll see you next time.
My people with me, together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in